From the outside, Ali MacGraw and Steve McQueen looked like the perfect Hollywood power couple. Beautiful mansion, luxury cars, red carpet events. But behind closed doors, McQueen was recording their conversations and questioning her for hours. In 1976, he pointed a loaded gun at her head for 30 minutes, demanding confessions to affairs that never happened. She covered bruises with makeup and made excuses to friends. When she finally told the truth years later, some people didn't believe her. The King of Cool had a much darker side that Hollywood tried to keep hidden. Ali MacGraw's childhood was full of things she couldn't understand at the time. Her father, Richard MacGraw, had a painful past that shaped who he became. He was born in New Jersey and abandoned by his parents as a child. He grew up in an orphanage, completely alone, and ran away to sea when he was just 16. After studying art in Munich, he settled in America. But the damage had already been done. Ali once said her father was always frightened and angry. He never forgave his parents for leaving him behind, and that pain showed up in violent ways. He would explode in front of the family, and Ali lived in constant fear of what mood he'd be in. She described him as violent more than once in interviews. His anger, mixed with drinking, made their home unstable. From a young age, Ali learned to stay quiet, always trying to avoid triggering something worse. That fear shaped how she would later deal with love, always feeling drawn to strong men who seemed like they could protect her. Her mother, Frances Klein MacGraw, had her own secret. She was born in 1901 to Hungarian Jewish immigrants Maurice Klein and Pauline Donner, who had come from Budapest, but she hid her Jewish roots from Richard for their entire marriage. Frances knew her husband was strongly bigoted and feared how he might react, so she pretended she didn't know anything about her ancestry. Ali only learned the truth as an adult. For decades, her mother had lived with that lie, hiding who she was to keep the family together. Frances had once been an artist, and even taught in Paris before settling in New York. She was already 38 when Ali was born in 1939, which was considered late at the time. The constant fear that her identity would be discovered only made the family more tense. That pressure affected how Frances raised Ali, never too open, never too honest. And it showed Ali early on that hiding painful truths was just part of life. When Ali was sent to Rosemary Hall, an elite boarding school in Connecticut, she quickly felt like she didn't belong. The school had been founded in 1890 and was filled with girls from wealthy families. Ali was there on a scholarship, and that made her stand out. While others talked about vacations and country estates, Ali's family barely had enough money to keep going. The boys who came to their dances were from Yale, Princeton, Harvard, and Exeter. She knew she wasn't part of that world. She did well in school, especially in literature and art, and even held leadership roles. But none of that erased how poor she felt next to her classmates. That sense of not belonging would stay with her for the rest of her life. It made her feel like she always had something to prove, always needing to earn her place in any room. Money was always a problem at home. Both her parents were commercial artists, but her father's drinking and anger made it hard for him to keep a steady job. So Frances had to work non-stop, trying to keep things afloat, while also hiding her own truth. The family had to move again and again, never settling in one place for long. They bounced between different homes in New York, never quite stable. Ali grew up with no real home base and no lifelong friends. Every time she got used to a place, they had to leave. The stress of not knowing what would happen next, combined with her father's outbursts, made life feel more about surviving than growing. Years later, Ali would say that this instability made her look for safety in the wrong places. She kept falling for men who felt like rescuers, because, as a child, she never had one. Her older brother, Dick MacGraw, went through the same things but handled them differently. He was also an artist, but the chaos around them took a big toll on his mental health. Their father's rage, their mother's hidden identity, the moving, the poverty, it all piled up. Dick once said that Ali had an Irish temper simmering on the back burner, showing that even she carried some of that family heat inside her. Ali later wrote in her book, Moving Pictures, that trying to deal with her brother's struggles on top of her parents' toxic marriage left her stuck in a cycle. She kept choosing dominating men who seemed strong because it reminded her of home in a strange way. That chaos felt familiar, even when it hurt. After graduating from Wellesley College in 1960, Ali was 21 years old and took a job at Harper's Bazaar, earning only $50 a week. She worked directly under fashion legend Diana Vreeland. The environment was intense, and Ali often compared it to The Devil Wears Prada. Vreeland once threw her coat at Ali, expecting her to hang it up like a servant, but Ali threw it right back. That moment showed her spirit, and surprisingly, it earned her some respect. From 1960 to 1966, she stayed in the job and learned everything she could. She styled famous figures like Jackie Kennedy and absorbed the cutthroat nature of the fashion world. Those years prepared her for what Hollywood would later throw at her. In 1965, she became known across America after starring in the Polaroid Swinger commercial. It was shot on a beach, and Ali was in a bikini walking through the waves, while Barry Manilow's jingle played, "Meet the Swinger, Polaroid Swinger." The camera cost exactly $19.95, and thanks to her charm on screen, it became a bestseller. That ad turned her into the face of the 60s and opened the door to more modeling gigs, including a campaign for Chanel No. 5. But the fame didn't mean money. She was often paid just $50 for major ads, while the photographers and agencies took home much more. Between 1963 and 1967, Ali lived in rough conditions, sleeping on bare floors, without basic furniture, sometimes staying with a struggling actor and his little Scottish terrier named Grounds. That dog became one of her only sources of comfort. These hard years taught her that she needed more control over her career, and acting seemed like a way out. In 1968, she got a small part in a film called A Lovely Way to Die, starring Kirk Douglas. Her role was uncredited, and critics were harsh. The reviews were so bad, she felt like giving up. She said later, "When I saw those reviews, I knew I was in over my head." But instead of quitting, she started studying method acting seriously. That failure lit a fire in her. Just a year later, in 1969, she gave a breakout performance in Goodbye Columbus, proving to everyone that she did have the talent. Between 1966 and 1968, her personal life was also changing. She had married a man from Harvard, but the marriage only lasted 18 months. Ali later said, "We were children. We didn't have anything to say to each other except pleasantries." During this time, she also struggled with her weight. She had gained too much to model, which pushed her even more toward acting. These years were full of setbacks, but she kept going. She built herself back up from nothing again. When Love Story began filming in 1970, things got out of hand quickly. The movie was originally supposed to be filmed at Harvard, but the press and public flooded the campus. The crowds became such a problem that the university kicked the entire production out. They had to move to City College of New York to finish shooting. Photographers were everywhere, and rumors flew about Ali and her co-star Ryan O'Neal. At the time, both of them were married to other people. Later, Ali admitted they had real feelings for each other. The pressure was so intense that even the director wanted to quit. Ali said she felt terrified by the attention. She had no idea how to handle that kind of fame. She became one of the first celebrities to truly experience being hounded by the press. It changed how people saw fame and how she saw herself. Her performance in Love Story wasn't just acting. She pulled from real pain. The character of Jenny, who was dying, felt close to home. Allie thought about her mother's lost artistic dreams and used that sadness to fuel her role. She even spent time with real, terminally ill patients to understand what dying looked like and felt like. Each day on set, she had to relive that grief. The emotion on screen was real because she was breaking down inside. It worked. Audiences believed every tear. But the experience left marks that didn't heal easily. Meanwhile, Steve McQueen was born on March 24, 1930, in Beech Grove, Indiana. His real name was Terrence Stephen McQueen. From the very beginning, life was hard. His father walked out before he was even born, and his mother was still a teenager struggling with alcohol and working the streets. She couldn't raise him, so she sent him to live with her brother Claude on a small farm in Slater, Missouri. But even there, things didn't get better. Steve later said the uncle didn't treat him right and couldn't give him proper care. By the time he turned 14, Steve had enough. He ran away from the farm and ended up in Los Angeles, living on the streets and joining a local gang just to survive. That rough life left scars that would stay with him forever. Those early years shaped how he acted, both in real life and on screen. The quiet anger, the sharp edge, the way he carried himself, it all came from those days when he had nothing and no one. In April 1947, when Steve was just 17, he joined the U.S. Marines, hoping maybe the military would give him structure. But trouble followed him there too. He was promoted to private first class, then demoted back to private, not once or twice, but 7 different times. The worst moment came when he took a weekend pass and turned it into a 2-week getaway with his girlfriend. When the shore patrol came to arrest him, he resisted. That landed him in military jail for 41 days. For the first 21 days, he was only given bread and water. In 1949, he was caught again going AWOL from his camp in North Carolina and was sentenced to another 30 days in confinement and fined $90. But even with all the rule-breaking, there was another side to him. During a training accident, Steve helped pull 5 Marines out of danger, and he was praised for it. When he left the Marines in 1950, it was with an honorable discharge. In 1952, he used the GI Bill to move to New York and study acting. He enrolled at Sanford Meisner's Neighborhood Playhouse and also learned from Uta Hagen at HB Studio. To make ends meet, he worked small jobs, mostly as a mechanic. He also started racing motorcycles, which brought him extra money and a huge rush of adrenaline. These years were important. He was learning how to act from the best teachers, while still keeping his edge from the streets and his skills with machines. All of this would later show up in the characters he played. Steve's first big break came with the TV show Wanted, Dead or Alive. It started airing on September 6, 1958. He played Josh Randall, a bounty hunter and Civil War veteran. He got $750 per episode, which was a solid paycheck at the time. The show became a massive hit, lasting for 94 episodes over 3 seasons until 1961. It drew in over 28 million viewers per episode during its first 2 seasons. His calm but intense style on that show made him a star, and he became one of the first TV actors to move successfully into film. But Steve wasn't just known for acting. He loved racing, and that part of his life brought more danger. In 1957, he was in a serious crash during a motorcycle race in Lake Elsinore, California. He recovered, but it was a close call. Then, in 1970, just 2 weeks before a major race in Sebring, he broke his left ankle in another bike accident. Still, he showed up to race with a plaster cast on his foot and managed to stay just 2 or 3 seconds behind his pro teammate Peter Revson. That kind of determination added to his legend. He didn't just play tough guys, he really was one. One of his most talked-about movie roles was in The Magnificent Seven in 1960. He played Vin Tanner, and even though Yul Brynner was the star, Steve kept drawing attention to himself. While Brynner delivered lines, Steve would move around, adjust his hat, check his gun, anything to stay in the viewer's eye. Brynner was furious. He called Steve difficult and unprofessional, and they argued throughout the shoot. But Steve's performance stood out. He went from making $65,000 per movie to $100,000 after that role. That film helped seal his reputation as the King of Cool. In 1963, he took on the role of Captain Virgil Hiltz in The Great Escape. The motorcycle scenes became legendary, especially the one where the bike jumps over a barbed wire fence. Steve did most of the riding himself, even though the final jump was done by stuntman Bud Ekins. They used a regular Triumph motorcycle, not a proper stunt bike, and Steve reached speeds over 60 miles per hour. There were no safety wires or special effects. It was all real, and it could have gone very wrong. But that was part of what made him who he was. He wanted the danger. Then came the Sand Pebbles in 1966. The shoot in Taiwan was supposed to take 9 weeks. It lasted 7 months. The problems were non-stop. Bad weather, political issues, illness, even a boat capsizing with all the sound gear. Steve got a tooth infection so bad, it became a serious health risk. He refused to get treated in Hong Kong because of a tax dispute. He even got into fights with director Robert Wise. But through all that, he gave one of his best performances and earned his first and only Oscar nomination for Best Actor. He was paid $650,000 for the role and also got a share of the film's profits. In The Thomas Crown Affair in 1968, Steve wanted to break out of the tough guy image. He played a rich mastermind and negotiated a huge paycheck, $750,000 plus 15% of the profits after break-even. That was more than what Sidney Poitier and Rod Steiger earned together for In the Heat of the Night. Steve brought his real-life love of chess into the movie. The seductive chess scene with Faye Dunaway was based on a real 1898 game from Vienna. He wore $350 suits and a $2,250 Patek Philippe watch. For once, he played polished instead of rough, but still kept that quiet intensity. Later that same year, Bullitt hit theaters. It had one of the most famous car chases ever filmed. Steve drove a 1968 Ford Mustang GT Fastback with a powerful V8 engine. He hit speeds of 140 miles per hour through the streets of San Francisco. There were no digital effects, no fake backdrops, just real cars flying down real streets. He practiced all day at a racetrack beforehand, but insurance still wouldn't let him do the most dangerous stunts. Still, that scene changed the way car chases were filmed forever. In 2020, the same Mustang sold for $3.7 million. In 1971, Steve met Ali MacGraw. She was married to producer Robert Evans at the time, but Steve was already interested. When he showed up at her house to offer her a role in The Getaway, sparks flew. They started filming on February 7, 1972, in Texas, and the chemistry between them was intense. Steve quickly started inviting her to private dinners. She said she was obsessed with him from the start, and they both knew where it was headed. By the time filming ended, she had left her husband and moved in with Steve at his Malibu home. Their affair became one of the biggest scandals in Hollywood. During their time in Texas, away from the public eye, Steve opened up to her. He talked about being abandoned as a child and how it made him not trust women. He couldn't stand seeing her act romantic with other men on screen. He would get upset on set, and director Sam Peckinpah had trouble keeping things under control. Bottles were thrown, and arguments broke out. But nothing stopped the relationship from moving forward. By the end of 1972, both Steve and Allie had filed for divorce. For Allie, it was especially painful. She lost custody of her young son, Josh, who was born in 1971. She later said that losing daily contact with her son was her biggest regret. The public saw the whole thing unfold, and it damaged her reputation. Steve and Allie married on July 12, 1973, at his ranch in Wyoming. But before the wedding, he made her sign a prenuptial agreement. It said that if they divorced, she wouldn't get a cent. Friends warned her not to sign it, but she did. After marriage, Steve McQueen didn't want her to work anymore. She had just become one of the biggest stars in Hollywood after her huge success in Love Story in 1970. But McQueen told her clearly, "No wife of mine works." So she gave up everything. She turned down the lead role in The Great Gatsby, a movie she had helped push into production. Even worse, she had to reject a role in The Godfather Part 2, which later became one of the most famous movies of all time. In her 1990 book, Moving Pictures, she said she gave up her career not only at its peak in popularity, but also earning potential. Instead of acting, she stayed home, just like McQueen wanted. They lived in a $17 million house in Malibu. It looked like a dream from the outside, with ocean views and private beach access. But McQueen filled it with hidden cameras. He didn't trust her. He watched her through surveillance all day, and even screened every phone call. Her friends stopped calling because McQueen always answered in a cold, irritated tone. She said it felt like she was being watched all the time, even inside their own home. This started right after they got married, and only got worse. Before their marriage, MacGraw had earned millions from Love Story. But McQueen made her put all the money into joint accounts that only he controlled. He had her sign a prenup that left her with nothing if they divorced. She couldn't even buy things without asking him first. Meanwhile, he kept his movie money from Bullet and The Getaway in his own private accounts. When they divorced in August 1978, she walked away broke. All her millions were gone, and she had no access to any of it. McQueen also kept her isolated from everyone. He would answer all her phone calls and decide who she could talk to. Her friends became afraid to even call the house. Once, she had a simple conversation with a male colleague, and McQueen exploded in rage, smashing the phone during their fight. He would go on and on, accusing her of cheating, even when there was no reason at all. She later said these moments felt like being interrogated, like the Inquisition. Over time, she said she became someone else, pretending to be the kind of woman he wanted, hiding who she really was. In 1974, just 1 year into their marriage, MacGraw suffered a miscarriage. McQueen showed no sympathy. Instead of comforting her, he blamed her stress and ambition for the loss. This came after he had told her to stop working and focus only on being a wife and mother. The moment revealed how little emotional care he gave her. She was already lost and lonely, and this made it worse. Their problems weren't just emotional. McQueen's anger turned physical. While filming The Getaway in 1972, he slapped her hard during a scene, and it wasn't part of the script. She was so shocked she forgot her lines. By 1975, he was hitting her more often, especially when drunk or high. At a Hollywood party, he hit her in front of people after getting jealous. She covered up the bruises with makeup. He once pinned her against the wall, shaking her during one of his jealous fits. Friends saw bruises shaped like fingers on her arms. She told them they were just accidents. In 1974, while filming The Towering Inferno, McQueen started an affair with model Lauren Hutton. He didn't try to hide it. He took Hutton to the same places he used to go with MacGraw. He even described sexual details about Hutton to her, comparing them cruelly. The film crew saw McQueen and Hutton being openly affectionate on set, while MacGraw stood nearby. When she asked him about it, he denied it, but he bragged to others. He left lingerie photos of Hutton in his trailer, knowing MacGraw would find them. McQueen also pulled her into his drug use. Starting in 1973, they began using cocaine together. Sometimes they would stay up for days. He would question her non-stop while recording her answers, convinced she had cheated on him. Once, a friend found her passed out in the bathroom after one of their cocaine binges. To come down from the highs, she started drinking more. What began as a few glasses of wine became whole bottles of vodka. McQueen gave her both the cocaine and the alcohol, keeping her hooked and dependent on him. One night in 1976, things went too far. In their Trancas Canyon home, McQueen pointed a loaded .38 revolver at her head for over 30 minutes. He kept clicking the safety on and off, moving the gun to her neck and temple, demanding she confess to affairs she never had. The neighbors heard her screaming. He had done similar things with his first wife, Neela Adams, in France during 1971. But with MacGraw, the gun was loaded. He had started buying weapons after the Manson murders, saying they were for protection, but he mostly used them to scare her. He would clean and load them in front of her, clicking the bullets into place while questioning her. He played games with her emotions. One night in 1975, she asked about his spending, and he locked her out of the house. She had to sleep in her car while he stayed inside with another woman. Other times, he would act loving, buy her jewelry, or take her on trips. But then, he'd humiliate her again, like making her serve dinner to other women he invited over and seating them in her place at the table. From 1973 to 1978, he refused to let her accept any movie roles. She lost an estimated $2 million during those 5 years. He monitored her calls, read her mail, and banned her from seeing other actresses. When she had another miscarriage in 1976, he showed no sympathy. He even accused her of doing it on purpose to hurt him. In 1977, MacGraw finally asked for a divorce, but that prenup she signed in 1973 meant she got nothing. She didn't get any property, no money, not even a part of his life insurance, except for a small $100,000 policy. After 5 years of marriage, she left with just her clothes and no job. Before the marriage, she had earned over $1 million from Love Story. Now she had nothing. After the divorce in 1978, McQueen started spreading false stories about her. He told people in Hollywood that she was unstable and hard to work with. This destroyed her career. Producers and directors stopped calling. The woman who had once won Golden Globes and been nominated for an Oscar was now seen as trouble. McQueen made it seem like she had ruined her earlier marriage to Robert Evans and that she was impossible to work with. None of it was true, but it kept her from finding work. She later said she felt completely empty, like there was nothing left inside her. Then came the final blow. In January 1980, McQueen married 25-year-old model Barbara Minty. He was already dying of cancer. He died just months later in November 1980 at age 50. But by marrying Minty before he passed, he made sure MacGraw got nothing. His $12 million estate went to his children and Minty. She received his personal items, car collections, and film royalties. MacGraw, who had given up everything for him, got nothing. After the divorce, MacGraw's financial problems were so bad that she had to auction her personal items just to pay bills. She had been out of work for 5 years and was now seen as old news. She had to accept any role that came her way, no matter how small. She went from private jets and luxury to barely surviving. She turned to alcohol to cope. She said she hit rock bottom. In 1978, in one of her first interviews after the divorce, she said she regretted marrying McQueen. She called him vicious and unstable, though she didn't reveal the full truth back then. She said he banned her from doing romantic scenes and would interrogate her for hours. She admitted he once held a gun to her head. They were both unfaithful by the end, trying to escape from a marriage that was already broken. She said she had completely changed herself to be the woman he wanted, but she lost who she really was. In 1986, MacGraw entered the Betty Ford Center. She thought she was there for a broken heart, but soon realized she had a drinking problem. She told the doctors she drank a bottle of wine every night. At Betty Ford, she finally faced the truth. She said, "Being in love was my real drug of choice." The treatment cost $21,000 a month. It changed her life. She understood that her fame and money had let her hide her pain for years. In 1991, she released her memoir, Moving Pictures. In it, she told the truth about McQueen's abuse, emotional, physical, and financial. She wrote that he acted out his rage and distrust on all the women he met, particularly his wives. She said it came from the pain of being abandoned by his father. Some fans criticized her for speaking out, but many women found strength in her story. In 2018, she gave another interview. She was 79 years old then, and had been sober for over 30 years. She said, "I wish we had both grown old sober." She looked back at their love with mixed feelings. There were happy times, but the pain and substance abuse ruined it. She admitted she had played a part in it too, by enabling his behavior and ignoring her own needs. In 1994, she moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico. She left Hollywood behind for good. She focused on yoga, meditation, and helping others. She became active in animal rescue and supported domestic abuse survivors. She said Santa Fe gave her peace, space, and healing. She stopped chasing fame and started living for herself.